Hello class, I'd like to go back to CSS layouts and give you a few more tricks and ideas for when you're starting to assemble these layouts on your own. This one's going to use just a simple division tag structure plus some gradients created in Photoshop. So let's look at it, and it's just the template part of it, or just the look of it, like the mock-up in Dreamweaver. Not a full website or anything, but doesn't need to be. So here's what it looks like, and it just uses some gradients, and you can see it has a nice centered approach depending on the size of your monitor, and it has a gradient at the top. So we haven't used gradients very much, but they can make your site look better. So gradient at the top, and then there's a gradient inside this division tag, and then a table right here. So it kind of has everything all in one. Now obviously there's nothing here, it's just the foundation, but hopefully it gives you an idea of how you can start to use these division tags plus a few images from Photoshop or Fireworks to start creating designs that are very usable, accessible, going to look good in pretty much any monitor also, and display properly. So that's what it looks like. Here's how it's built. Let's go back. Let me go back to the folder. It has an HTML file. This site is uploaded for you. I gave you the link so you can check this out. It has an HTML file, CSS obviously, and then just 2 images to get this done. Here's the background image. It's one of these that repeats across the page, and it's really high because I didn't want it to repeat again down the page. You can set your CSS so that it does not repeat down the page, but then you would have to match the color down at the bottom. I'll talk about that in a minute. So I did make that one longer, but you wouldn't have to if you match your color. That won't close. There we go. And then this is the background for inside of that division tag. Now this one is smaller. You can see it's got the orange at the top fading into the gray, and then the background of the division tag actually just matches the bottom color of this gradient image right here. So that's how that one is accomplished. Okay, so let's go back to Dreamweaver, and then we'll use Photoshop as well. So first thing, if I want to look at how the site is created, check out the code. It just has actually source code for the HTML. It has a little there are some annotations in here because I think I used one of the Dreamweaver, started with one of the Dreamweaver templates and then kind of altered it from there. But it has your link to your style sheet, and then it has 2 main division tags, the header division tag and then the content division tag. I may go take some of this stuff out before I upload it, but those are the only 2 division tags. I didn't bother with a container here because it's so simple. And then the CSS, you can see same thing. There is something on the body there with the background color, and then there's content and header. So the content, header actually should come first, but it doesn't matter. But just as far as which division tag you see first, that would be the header. The header is used to bring the design down just a little bit to get that look where that main box is down a little bit from the top, and then the content is where the gradient goes, the main gradient. So the width is 925 on that one, and then there's a background color, and then here's that background URL. Okay, so we'll look at that, building that. Okay. Alright, so in Photoshop what I would do, I got to create 2 backgrounds here. So I'll go into Photoshop, I'll do a File, New, and then in this case we'll do a pretty big canvas here, not a huge one, but let's do like 700 by 500 just for display. Remember to use your sizes in Dreamweaver, the default sizes. Okay, and then click OK. Alright, now creating a gradient is very simple, just an easy gradient. Use your gradient tool on the left hand side. If you're not using CS6, you may have to hunt for it. It might be in a little different position, but gradient tool, it's in this flyout menu with the paint bucket and the 3D material drop tool. So you would click this and then select your colors down here, or you can go up here and click to get the gradient box. So I had a different gray, blue on the bottom. I use web colors here. I'll use a gray. Okay, and I'll just draw a straight line about like that. Okay, and then the other thing I did, that'll be just fine. The other thing that I did in this particular case was I took the rectangle tool and I just put a little rectangle at the top and probably with a little line underneath it. And then I also did a line right here. So that's how I assembled my background. That's the way it looks pretty much. Now, then what I did was to crop. So I just took this, just a little section just like that, cropped it, and that's what a tiling background looks like. Now, when you export this thing, it's going to end up as a probably as a JPEG because of the gradient color switch. So you would want to try that out. In this case, what I'm showing you is we're going to match the background color in Dreamweaver with the bottom color here on your gradient so that you don't have to stretch out the canvas. What you used to have to do, and what still works fine is if you go into your canvas size and you lock the top, change this to pixels, and you make the height something really high that would not repeat, something like 2500, click OK. And then that's going to repeat. Now you'd want to change the color obviously down here, just use a paint bucket and fill it in with the gray, but obviously that would not repeat. You really don't have to do that if you're going to match the color in Dreamweaver. So what do I mean by match the color? Okay, well I'll show you. Let's save this. So we'll do a file save for web. Okay, that's what that looks like, and that'll be alright. We'll go ahead and save it JPEG. Okay, so I'll just save it into my gradients folder. I'll call it BG practice and then click save. Okay, now back in Dreamweaver, when you're putting in these backgrounds, whether it's inside of a division tag like this orange one or if it's the main background for the page, let me do file new. Okay, blank page, HTML, and I'll click create. And then what I would do is I would go modify page properties, set the background here. I'm sorry, I better save that first. Do file save. Okay, modify page properties. So I would set the background image, BG practice, click open, repeat X only in this case. So that goes across the screen. Okay, and that looks fine, except it did not pick up my little line for some reason. I'd have to go back and check that out. But you can see what's going to happen here. If I preview this, I'll save it. It cuts it off right there. So all you would need to do is make sure that you match the color and make sure your gradient has completely changed to that color at the bottom of the screen. So I would go modify page properties, appearance, background, and then I use the one that's all C's, the web safe color. Apply that, click OK, save, and then preview in browser. Okay, and you can see right here it did pick up a little line because it's a JPEG, but you can get an idea. So this is what would sit behind this right here, and you can see mine looks a little better behind it, but that's going to sit. This division tag will sit right on top of it. So to do the division tag background, I'll switch back here. I just went into this content division tag, and if you check the background, you can see I have a background color, and then I have the image, and then that's going to set that right there. If I did not have the background color on there, you'll be able to see it cuts off right there, so that background fills that in. So, and that, you might like a look like that, different boxes, different so that cuts off right there, so you can get different layers going like that. So lots of different things to try in this tutorial. Again, I was just kind of throwing this together, and sometimes it's hard to get it to look perfect in the demonstrations, but I created a new canvas in Photoshop, dropped a gradient on there, and cropped it, made sure the gradient changes to gray at the bottom. Let me step backwards here a little bit. Okay, what I'd probably do in this case is I'd probably use the gradient and switch it just a little bit faster. So when I did the gradient, I'd probably stop here for the blend. Instead, see, yeah, something like that. I'd probably stop about halfway. That's what I did, and that way you can be assured that the color is going to blend a little bit better. Then the other thing is when you go save this for the web, check out your GIF. Now that I'm looking at it again, I think the GIF file format might work a little better here because it's going to blend the exact color. Usually use a JPEG when you're talking about gradients and a lot of different color changes, but in this case, because we are blending the colors, it might be better to use the GIF, and then you can and see what it looks like. This actually looks good, so and it's not too big as far as file size goes, and that is what I used on the original. I did use GIF images, but experiment for yourself and see. Just remember that if you're matching hexadecimal colors between what you export in Photoshop and Dreamweaver, you have to save as a GIF image, otherwise JPEG does not retain those hexadecimal colors. So that's it for this demonstration. Again, just quick recap of what I did. A simple division tag layout here for this design. Backgrounds. Let's see, background images that are gradients basically, and then matching the background colors so that the gradients look like they fit in seamlessly with the background even though they tile. So that's it for this tutorial. Hope it gives you some more ideas for putting together these CSS layouts.